Hello, I'm currently walking along a very overgrown pathway, ducking out of the way of trees and leaves, because I am on Iowa Avenue in Overland, which is a neighborhood south of downtown Denver. This area that I'm standing at right now is the site of what is probably the most useful and important site for an infill station on the entire RTD network.
The new Overland station could be located on the D line about halfway between the existing stations, each about a mile away. Situated above the Iowa Avenue underpass, Overland Station is located in a rapidly urbanizing section of the city, and is only 1 block away from the historic Overland Park Golf Course, the oldest golf course in the state. There's no question that the city of Denver has definitely grown around this site.
And this entire golf course is now prime land for redevelopment. Now there are 2 other golf courses in the city that are closer to downtown. There's Cherry Creek and City Park Golf Course. Now both of those golf courses do not have a light rail running right next to them. So they are still lower on the list for redevelopment, in my opinion, than Overland.
Additionally, I believe those 2 other sites are better suited to be transformed from private golf courses and country clubs into public parks for all of the city's residents to enjoy. Overland, on the other hand, is a perfect site for transit-oriented development, and in my opinion is a great example of how golf courses in urban areas have some of the best, if not the best, potential for TODs across the world. Denver has more than enough selection of golf courses, and nobody is looking to redevelop courses out in the suburbs or beyond. It's just that in an urban environment that's currently facing rising unaffordability and a growing amount of housing scarcity, there are much more important things that the land could be used for.
Aside from golf courses, another good spot to redevelop in this city is right here. This is an old abandoned train yard that's been sitting empty for about a decade. Right there is the 10th and Osage station. Well, you can't really see it behind this fence and this big concrete median, but this area is a pretty enormous, just empty space that could be redeveloped, and it's currently being used for absolutely nothing, so nothing would be lost.
Golf as a sport has a relatively high barrier of entry when it comes to income level, particularly with private country clubs that are almost exclusively reserved for upper-class individuals. The average golf course requires a high amount of labor and water to maintain itself, and Overland Park is city-owned, meaning that it's maintained by public funds and will likely cost less money for the city to transform it into housing. Though before the golf course is redeveloped, something will need to be done about this street in the way. Sorry, I mean the god-awful 6-lane highway in the way. Santa Fe Drive is an enormous overbuilt boulevard that this Redditor best described as cosplaying as a highway, and I couldn't put it better myself. The Denver Metro has a few of these highway cosplaying roads, and I've already covered a lot of the dangers they pose in a previous video, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. All I'm going to say is that this road is much wider than it needs to be, and since it runs parallel to a mass transit line, Santa Fe would be an optimal spot for a major lane and speed limit reduction. A few miles north of Overland, Santa Fe becomes a one-way urban street lined with artsy shops, historic buildings, and wide sidewalks. The speed limit here is 25 miles per hour instead of 55, and it's undoubtedly a much nicer, safer, and more livable street that can serve as an example of how the rest of this road should be built. I envision an extension of the Santa Fe northbound, Calumet southbound duo along the entire corridor, creating 2 single-lane one-way streets, each with street parking only on one side and a 70-foot wide section in between, with space for parks and further mixed-use development in addition to Overland. Aside from the value of the land, both the money and water that is spent on golf courses like Overland would be better used elsewhere, especially in places with arid or desert climates, which I guess Denver could be considered a part of. I mean, we're not as rainy as the East Coast, but we sure aren't Death Valley either. Wait. You have to be joking.
But if the golf course behind me is to be redeveloped into housing as I propose, it needs to be done properly. I feel like there's a lot that American cities can learn from Barcelona and the way that they do urban planning there. The apartment buildings built here need to be high density. They need to be mixed use. They should be in every way transit oriented. Parking should be put to a minimum, and there should be only 1 or 2 through streets through this area. The whole point would be to make a community as transit accessible and transit oriented as possible. With the new Overland station, and by turning Santa Fe into a normal street instead of a super wide highway like it currently is, that would be completely possible. American cities are truly lacking in the urban density department. And while I have nothing against the sport of golf itself, golf courses are essentially the worst use of urban land. Well, I guess besides surface level parking lots, of course. But, you know, that's a given.
The Overland Golf Course occupies an approximately 136-acre site, most of which could be turned into mixed-use apartment buildings, while the western side along the shores of the Platte River should be turned into a Riverwalk Park along the Platte River Trail and be connected via a pedestrian bridge to Ruby Hill Park and the Levitt Pavilion. This person's tweet shows the possibilities of a site like this, and if most of the trees on the course are kept, it will create a densely populated, mixed-use green neighborhood housing over 15,000 people. A single through street could run through this development, and if there is parking, it will be in limited underground garages along this road. This kind of urban infill is something I hope to see more of across North America, and around the world there are many golf courses like Overland that could be developed in a similar manner. Furthermore, I ought to mention the multitude of plots adjacent to the infill station that are also incredibly prospective TOD sites, especially now that Denver recently abolished its minimum parking requirement laws around train stations.
Right here is the site of what I believe is a lumber company and a warehouse. And then on the other site is a car wash, a big sign for willheightwins.com, and a bunch of other abandoned stuff. And I don't know what's in this red building here. Hey, there's a freight train. There's a freight train. Makes it even harder to hear what I'm saying.
I guess at this point I should give a brief layout plan for the Overland station. The station platform will be located above Iowa Avenue here, and the existing light rail bridge will be rebuilt or expanded. 2 pedestrian paths could be built on each side of the underpass, with stairs, ramps, and elevators up to the platform, and a third path branching south to Bannock Street to connect the station to some existing apartment blocks. Iowa Avenue itself could be made a one-way westbound street, or the entire underpass could be revamped into a pedestrian-only area. And trust me, this would not affect commute times for drivers in any meaningful way. So, for example, let's say I want to go from Columbine Valley up to, like, Capitol Hill or something. This is like the optimal route to take Santa Fe. It routes me up Santa Fe and through the Iowa Avenue underpass, 27 minutes. But what if I just, like, took Federal? 31 minutes. Oh, the horror. Oh, it's 4 whole minutes longer of a drive. Whatever will I do? Anyway, this layout will make Overland function in a similar manner to an elevated train station, and this station could become one of the most useful on the entire network, as the entire neighborhood is brimming with development potential.
Even if the station opened tomorrow and the Overland Golf Course was not redeveloped, this station would still be pretty damn useful. Well, as long as it's easily accessible, of course. There's a bunch of apartments and mixed-use development going up around here, and there's Broadway, one of the main streets in the entire city. Look at that new apartment building. That didn't exist 2 years ago. Neither did that one. And in the future, maybe everything around here will be urban density. So this is a really fast-growing area that would benefit massively from an infill station in this area. Also, I believe the proposal to rebuild this pedestrian pathway first came around in 2019 because it's not ADA compliant. You have to take these stairs on either end of the platform here. There's the stairs back there. There is a proposal to rebuild this to be kind of a gradual ramp that goes down and then up, but clearly they haven't even started on it yet, and it's been 5 years. So who knows when they will start on it. I feel like if they are to rebuild this entire pedestrian corridor, they should build the infill station as well on the D line. Should be right there. Just make the entire area easier to get around. Plus, from where I'm standing right now, I could walk over, get on the train there, and take it a few stops right into downtown Denver, or a few stops further down to downtown Littleton.
The city just broke ground on the East Colfax BRT, which will cut down travel times on the Route 15 bus by as much as 20 minutes. A similar BRT could be built along Broadway in Lincoln, running south from downtown, past Overland Station, and all the way to Arapahoe Road, where it could jut east to the South Glen Outdoor Mall. Another recent development is that the downtown loop, which was closed for maintenance all summer, is once again open. During construction, the D line was rerouted to Union Station, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I personally found the line to be more useful when routed along this corridor, and I support rerouting the D line to Union as it would make transfers easier. Additionally, the F line, which was cancelled at the dawn of the pandemic, should be brought back to regular weekday service. The Broadway corridor is growing quickly, and Overland lies at the center of it all. It should be the priority of RTD and the City of Denver to ensure that this new development is mixed-use, affordable, and oriented around transit from day one. Golf courses are great because they're sort of like starting from scratch, especially a place like Overland that's adjacent to an existing light rail line. Overland is a perfect station to showcase all the different city planning changes that Americans can take to divert off the path of car-centrism and towards a more sustainable and, frankly, quieter future for our cities. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the video to the end, if you did. Now it's time for the Aftershow by the Bush. This is where I get to talk about all the random things that didn't make it into the main part of the video. I guess I'll start out by saying that I really do hope the Overland Station is built for all the reasons that I've listed in this video. But one of the main reasons I made this video was because I haven't heard anyone talking about it, let alone any official proposals. Now, the 2004 Fast Tracks ballot did approve the construction of another infill station further south on the D line at Bates, and this was never built. And while I wouldn't be opposed to its construction, it's definitely not nearly as useful of an infill station as Overland. A few other things is that a block away from the Overland Station, there's this popcorn store called Kettlehead, and they make the absolute best popcorn ever made. I have a bag right here. This is the best popcorn ever, and I'm saying this because it's really good, not because I'm sponsored by them. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed, you know. I also never mentioned that Overland has its main golf course section, which should be redeveloped into housing, but there's also this driving range and mini golf course just north of that site. And having played all of these courses, I definitely prefer the mini golf over all of them, and the driving range over the lake is pretty cool as well. So that stuff should definitely remain even if the main golf course is redeveloped. And that's another reason why Overland Station should be built, so I can take the light rail to go play mini golf, because mini golf is the better sport. I'm just kidding, that's subjective, but you know, it's my personal preference. I would so watch mini golf tournaments if they existed. Like, I could only imagine the amount of ridiculousness and fun that could come from that, or even what the announcers would say. Jameson's up next with his signature purple polka dot ball, and he's looking to make a never-before-seen backspin skip jump through the loop-to-loop. It has to be picture perfect, or he runs the risk of losing the lead at the Dragon course. But anyway, that's about all I have for today. This has been a really busy month for me. I actually had to pause work on a big project I started about a week ago in order to finish an even bigger and longer project that's much older than that. So because of that, the next video will be coming out before 2025. I have the best upload schedule.